In the world of residential real estate transactions in America, almost 90% of the houses are sold through an agent who is an intermediary between buyers and sellers. On an average, an agent charges 6% of the selling price of the house as their commission. An intermediary or a middleman in any transaction gets paid whether the seller makes a profit or a loss because they are providing a service. Now imagine if the rule of the land was that you could only sell your house through an agent and had to sell your house through an agent, and the law mandated that you had to pay the agent 90% of your profits from the sale as commission. The question is, would you sell your house? I know you might be thinking, this is crazy, why would I do such a thing? Fair thought and question. Let's look at one more transaction that we are involved in a regular basis. Do you know what happens when you put deposits in a bank, your money? The bank lends it out to their customers or borrowers, charges interest, and pays you a piece of it. Banks are middlemen doing service, borrowing, and lending. In the time period 2010 to 2022, banks on an average charge their customers between 5 and 18% interest based on the collateral that they collected. And then, do you know what they paid you, the depositor? 0.25%. Your money was their capital, and they paid you less than 10% or a pittance of what they charged. Now, I know they have expenses and all that stuff, but still. Question is, why did you play such an unfair game? Remember, just a moment ago, you were thinking you would never pay the middleman, that real estate agent, 90% of your profits, right? What happened here? Why did you let this middleman keep more than 90%? It's because you do not have a choice when it comes to banking. Governments worldwide have set rules, laws, and complex regulation in such a manner that ordinary folks cannot go out there and get started with collecting deposits and lending business in a cheap and easy manner. Money is the language of transactions. It was created in a human mind. It exists or carries value only amongst us humans. You need money to pay for food, pay for your rent, and for other entertainment expenses. You need to earn more than what you plan to spend, or you just won't be able to do all the things you desire to do. Why deposit that money in a bank? Or why invest it? Why couldn't you keep it tucked under the mattress? One, you don't want your house to be a target for thieves. As you grow older, the ability to work diminishes little by little, and you want to relax and you want to get some form of passive income. But the main reason is the money that you use today is called fiat paper money, issued by the government. It's losing its purchasing power year over year because of inflation. Now, inflation is nothing but the government that controls the money supply or your money, printing it indiscriminately, be it in the name of welfare or warfare. And the net result that you see is that essential commodities prices are rising up and up and up. So that's why you need to invest that excess over your expenditure for something that will give your savings growth or some passive income. And what is available to us, for all of us common folks, are stocks, bonds, commodities, or real estate. Now, when you want to invest in any asset, you need to rely on a third-party custodian, most of them being banks. Now, banks, by providing this essential service to us, have become very powerful in our society. They control the platform that you're dependent on to send and receive money. They can censor you on that platform. And they don't have to provide justification, you have no right to question, and they don't have to provide you any recourse. Ask anyone who's lost a bank account one fine morning. The government, the issuer of money, plays unfair games with us. They print money out of thin air impoverishing you savers, and then they also rescue or bail out their supporters and allies with the pretext, too big to fail. The Leviathan does not and will not bail you or me out in case we hit bankruptcy. The system is broken. That is money and the financial services on top of money. It needed to be disrupted at its foundation. It is stacked against us, the common folk. And it is unfair, all these things, because there is a central entity called the government and the central bank that controls it, and they pick winners and losers. The need of the hour was a decentralized digital money, and Bitcoin, created by the anonymous Satoshi Nakamoto, was the answer. Ethereum and smart contracts advanced this concept further and made programmable money possible. The market capitalization of the whole ecosystem went from zero to almost $3 trillion in a span of 13 years at its peak. But shit happens, right? We created decentralized money to save us from a centralized entity called the state. What happened? We started trading them and storing them on centralized exchanges and lending platforms. Numerous lending platforms and exchanges defrauded customers of their money or lost customer funds because they had security breaches or they had improper financial management practices for customer funds. FTX was a prime example where a scammer lost billions of dollars for millions of customers. So there was a gap where decentralized money that was depending on centralized services. DeFi, or decentralized finance, is an umbrella term for peer-to-peer financial services on public blockchains. DeFi takes the basic premise of Bitcoin, or decentralized money, and expands on it to create a digital alternative to Wall Street, but without all the associated costs. It is global, it's free, it's fair, it's an open and transparent system. Wouldn't it be nice if you could do what large banks or investment banks do with your own money, like facilitating borrowing and lending, facilitating trading, and earning a handsome yield on that? Not just earning a yield, but getting to keep a bigger chunk of the yield. The moment you possess money or any financial asset, it needs to be working for you actively. And traditionally, we relied on banks to do that for us. In the decentralized or the digital world, DeFi is the mechanism that's going to make money work for you. And the beauty and the advantage of DeFi is that you do not rely on a middleman or that single trusted custodian over there who could censor you out. And hence, inefficiencies are lowered. Let's dive into the detailed mechanics of how this technology and process works with two examples. The first one is a decentralized exchange, or a DEX. An exchange is just a place where you trade, swap, or exchange assets. New York Stock Exchange. Americans buy and sell stocks over there. Now, the exchange has designated large investment banks or hedge funds or large companies as market makers who provide liquidity to the exchange that makes it easy for you to sell and buy stocks. Market makers are the buyers and sellers of last resort. They provide the safety net. They bring trust into the capital markets and the exchange for all participants. It is a very profitable business, provided you know how to do it. Trust me, I used to work in the market-making division of an investment bank in my previous life. Citadel, one of the largest hedge funds, made $4 billion just through their market-making business in 2022. Unfortunately, you or me, if we take our modest investments of $100, $1,000, $10,000, $1 million, $10 million, they won't make us a market maker on any centralized exchange to get a piece of that fees. It's hard. I mean, it's structurally not designed to do that. But in a DeFi exchange like Uniswap, we or anyone anywhere in the world can deploy our capital to get a piece of that fees. We can become that market maker. The distributed code, the algorithms, and the smart contract together make sure that the process works, and we get a fair share of the fees that are generated. And as a user, when a user trades or buys something on a decentralized exchange, he gets a bigger share, or his fees are lower because the associated costs are lower. There are no buildings to pay rent for and middlemen salaries to do. The next example is borrowing and lending. Your home equity, if you have equity on your home, it's like an emergency fund in case of injury or illness or job loss. But do you know that the process, if you go to get a loan, it takes around 30 to 45 days for the bank to decide to give you the money. Not give you the money, decide. If you have lost your job, good luck. They're just going to ask the question, how are you going to pay it back? So this emergency fund was not really there. It's like you're hungry and you're going asking somebody for food and they're telling you, I'll give you food in 30 to 45 days. In a decentralized lending platform, if you have an asset, you send it to the platform, it pays you the maximum possible value at prevailing rates on the spot. It's open 24/7, 365 days. It's not like a bank which closes in the evening or is closed over the weekend. And for the lender, he's protected by the system. He gets a bigger chunk, not that the middleman is taking a bigger chunk away like in the previous world. And when the asset prices go down, the collateral is sold by the system to protect his investment. MakerDAO was one of the first lending protocols. Aave and Compound are popular ones today that people use for decentralized lending and borrowing. I've touched two examples out here on how financial services are decentralized. There are many more, like other financial services like derivatives, insurance, all these that are being decentralized with DeFi. Now, any ecosystem or mechanism needs a gauge to measure what's happening. In the DeFi world, we use something called TVL, or total value locked. This is the amount of assets or money that people have sent to all these DeFi protocols. It is used for lending or providing liquidity to these exchanges. Prior to 2019, it was just a couple of $1 million. At its peak, by 2021, it reached to almost $200 billion. The performance metrics impressive, right? The technology is remarkable. But why isn't everyone using DeFi for financial services? Three main reasons. Number one, this is new technology. And every new technology has this problem called bridging the gap between early adopters and the broader population, because that's how technology works, and that's how humans work. We are very resistant to change our habits. It took us decades before we started purchasing books and shoes online without touching them or trying them on. In the early 2000s, there used to be a 6-week paid course that taught people to open their Windows operating system, Microsoft Word, and Excel. When I tell this to my kids, they really look at me as though the previous generation, our brains were not highly evolved. Okay? Paying to open your Windows on a laptop? I tell them, you guys are going to do similar things after 20, 30 years from today. But they're like, no. All right. Second one, incumbent fear-mongering. Incumbents in an industry, today in the money world, it's your powerful politician who is screaming at the height of his voice that this is a scam, because he knows that the moment he loses control over money, he's going to lose control over his subjects. When it comes to money, wealth, and all those things, people are scared. They always ask this question: has the government approved this? Is the regulatory agency like SEC protecting us? They never think that if they had bought the Lehman stock prior to the 2008 financial crisis, and when the company went bankrupt and the stock went to zero, neither the government nor the SEC paid them a penny back, and nobody went to jail. The third reason, Bitcoin, the flagship crypto, its prices are down compared to where it was 2 years ago. It's still 100x more than where it was 10 years ago, but it's down today. And when prices go south, people get scared. They try to run away. In 2001, when the dot-com bust happened, most web and internet companies went under. Everybody was running away from technology stocks and technology companies. But remember, it's from those ashes that rose the largest companies we see in the world today that trounced the industrials and the oil giants of S&P 500, who used to be the undisputed kings. Are there risks involved over here? Of course. There are scammers in this field like any other. It's relying on distributed code, which has become like a honeypot. And that will attract hackers, just like honey attract bees. And there are market forces of supply and demand that can cause losses. There are no free lunches out there, guys. My intention is not here to provide any kind of financial advice or solicit your investment into any product. I'm just here to evangelize about a brilliant technology that exists out there that has made impossible things possible in the digital realm, which is sending value over the wire or doing financial services over the wire without a middleman in between. My hope and my prayer is that if you've listened till here, when this is done, when you go out, you do your research and learn more about Bitcoin, DeFi, and see how you can be a part of this revolution. It is a peaceful revolution where you take control over the greatest asset of the human mind, your money.